Hey, this is Jon Reyes, and thanks for joining in on the Authority Marketing Blueprint. Sit back, relax, and grab your virtual seat because in this episode and every other episode, I'll be interviewing and collaborating with another high-level marketing and copywriting expert. If you haven't yet, go ahead and get some help along the way as we dish out and pinpoint some of the most profitable, powerful marketing and copywriting wisdom. Get some help with implementing everything you'll hear in this episode and other episodes by downloading my personal sales funnel swipe file stash at copyblueprints.com. Now, grab your virtual seat and listen in.
Chris Hanna is on today. He's known as the all-in solopreneur, aka the video batch content creation king. He's the owner of All In Content, and he's been helping anywhere from solopreneurs, coaches, people from doing low to mid six figures, anywhere from manual laborers, consultants to build amazing content marketing platforms from the ground up. Chris, thanks for being on.
Hey, John, excited to be here.
Thanks. So the most interesting part, I think, when we first met is you were operating a completely different business where you were very successful, but as you know, in that level as an entrepreneur, you realize it was time to get out, right? You're hitting kind of a point of burnout, or it wasn't giving you, it was kind of not energizing anymore.
Yeah, so I was a CEO of a real estate education company, which I will not name, but I was part of this company. It was a multi-million-dollar company, and I was feeling like I was just burnt out. I was miserable. My wife had said to me on a walk that, Chris, you love doing your own thing. You love coaching, consulting, creating content. You love hiring for people. Why don't you do what our wedding rings say? And they say the words all in. Why don't you go all in on bet on yourself and leave that, business to really strike out fully on your own? And made the decision with obviously the confidence and support of my wife, and never looked back, being able to launch, multiple companies as a result of that in the hiring side. And then the company I really focus on with All In Content now as well.
It's funny because that's almost a rite of passage. I think it's almost a privilege to get to that level. It comes with a lot of entrepreneurial experience, right? Because there's that dream of, I want to be doing a multiple 7-figure company, a multiple 8, maybe even 9 figures. And then along the way, you kind of discover more about yourself as a person. Is it worth it? Is it worth it? It's like,
Yeah, like I think for me, it was less about the money. It was more about the freedom that comes with really truly striking out fully on my own, the flexibility that comes from that, and probably the fulfillment. So like those 3 F words, right? Like freedom, flexibility, and fulfillment were so important and integral for me that I could ultimately then live life on my terms, not dictated by the terms of others, by fully just having my own and being and embracing being a solopreneur, and obviously having multiple income streams and being able to run with what I think I do best. And to me, that was important.
So how did that kind of transition? Because now that you're doing all in content, and you're taking your experience and your wisdom from, what you're really successful at, what you don't want to do anymore, and then you kind of built this, there's, from your experience, different ways for people to, because people who are, for example, an agency or a solo consultant, or even like a health and wellness practitioner, some of them are at that level where they're doing, maybe low 6 figures or multiple 6, or they aspire to get to that level, or they want to get to a higher level, but there's just so much floating around about, should I build a presence? How should I utilize social media? Should I get on camera? Should I use my personality? But like, how did you kind of transition to what you do now? It's kind of that path, because you first started by teaching yourself, the organic parts of social media marketing, right?
Well, if I sit there and I look back and I go back into the journey, like 5-6 years ago, for me, I was working in a corporate world at the time, and I knew that I wanted something more. And I've always been entrepreneurial since I was a kid. And I started realizing, okay, I need to build a personal brand of some sort outside of the corporation that I worked for. And so it was, how do I start to do that? As I started to go to networking events and started to attend conferences, everyone would talk about the importance of a personal brand, but I'm like, how do I build that credibility? So I need to start to create content in some way. So I started with blog posts, and I started, batch creating those. And then it started with some podcast episodes that I started trying to be on, and or then creating my own, the Chris Hanna Show, the podcast that I have too. And then over time, I was like, you know what? I should just start doing some video. I can start, creating video and starting to share my message. And as I started doing more video, I started realizing, well, why just do one at a time when I can do a lot in one shot? So my record at the time then was 143 videos in one day that I shot for myself and my personal brand. Now my record's 227 as of this moment as we're recording it. But it's like I realized I could batch create enough video to set me up for months and more. And then as I started to go all in and create my own business and all in content, it was really around those principles that I've learned and really mastered myself around how to batch create content that could then perform well on social media to build your personal brand, to attract clients, to bring them in. And I realized that's a pain point for a lot of entrepreneurs. They know they need a brand, they know they need content, but they don't want to spend the time to do it. And I was like, well, what if you could just do it in one day? What if in one day you record enough content that you are set? And then that's really what the genesis of this company has been all about. And it's because of that journey and experience that I went through to then apply those lessons to continue to push forward.
And I think what sets you apart is, of course, hitting records like that. See, if you could create 227 content videos in a day, you can provide a person who's just getting started enough content for a year pretty efficiently. But I think what also sets you apart is understanding how to help either it's the influencer, the CEO, the main entrepreneur, how to balance their time and their focus, right? Because part of it is how much do you even know what you need for content? It's do you know what to say? Do you know what's going to attract more people, right? Because that's where you kind of come in, because sometimes the CEO or the entrepreneur is either doing too much or too little.
Well, and I think a big part of this is I've done a lot of leadership coaching. I've done career coaching as well. So I'm infusing that with what I do. So along the process, we're not only just recording videos, I'm actually coaching them along the way, like what to say. Oh, let's have a stronger hook. Let's actually try and bring in the right CTA to, push this back to whatever your core offer is, or your website, or whatever have you. I think it's that mix of coaching kind of helps. And I think being an entrepreneur also is helpful when I work with entrepreneurs, because then I can actually say, hey, if you say it this way, this would actually appeal to people who might be interested in your potential offer. It's about ultimately just that mix and that fusion of having a plan, coming up with, ideas of what you want to record. And there's a plethora of ways that you can come up with ideas for videos. And then having the coaching and the support to ultimately go through that process of recording them and then getting them out for them.
So what is one of your I wouldn't say favorite or the most stressful, but what has been one of the most fulfilling or rewarding clients or projects you've worked on? Because there's just so much that you do podcasts for yourself as well. You can help guide multi-million-dollar. You actually were kind of a CEO of a multi-million-dollar company in a way, in the real estate agency. So there's probably just so much experience you have under your belt. So can you kind of, not just me, but everyone listening, let us know what kind of one of your, I guess, favorite or most rewarding projects is, even if it was stressful?
Yeah, I think probably the most rewarding one that comes to mind is I was working, and I still do to this day. I work with this bookkeeping firm, and I started out by just coaching. I was doing leadership coaching with her, and I was explaining a little bit of what she needs from a content side. And she's like, you know what, Chris, why don't you just I'll do one of their sessions with you. So we recorded enough content for a quarter, and she was really nervous going through the process, and really not that comfortable, but we were able to shoot in 4 hours enough content to set her up for a quarter of content. And then when she instantly starts posting it, she starts getting people booking consultation after consultation. And I said, you're going to have to hire now in your business, and you're going to have to grow. And now she's at this point where she's continually getting so booked up that her biggest problem is that she's growing too much. And I'm like, that's a good problem to have. And then every time we're connecting for our coaching calls, or we're going through the next quarter of content to create, she's just so happy and excited, and she gets pushed out of her element a little bit. And I know we're going to start to do more lives with her as well. but like to be able to see the growth and be part of the journey of someone who's kind of only a couple of years in with their business, and to see it having to grow and scale with new employees being added on and customers coming from all across North America because they're seeing her content, is pretty cool to be part of that journey, and just so fulfilling to see the success that they're having and to know that, hey, you know, I get to be a small part of that. And I know she always says it's like I have a big part of it, but I feel like I'm always a small part because she's the one on camera. But that's really cool to be part of that journey when you're with those entrepreneurs who are just really like they know they need content, but they don't know how to do it. And then you help them and you see it's not that hard, is it? Like it's not that bad.
So this is kind of, I don't think it, you know, I think any entrepreneur who's probably 5, even close to 10 years as an entrepreneur, there's always that line of how do I feel on camera? And then am I saying the right thing or giving the right content when I'm on camera? But I think there becomes a certain level where you become so experienced that you just kind of just go on camera and you just think you're saying the right thing, but your audience is not resonating with what you're saying. You know, it's like it becomes with I can't teach an old dog new tricks. So it's sometimes you'll go on camera promoting, like maybe you're in e-commerce or you sell supplements or you sell you know, like health and beauty, and then you'll promote your product on camera, but then you start to find out, oh shoot, people actually are buying into my personality. So these are common problems you probably run into, right? Like, do you feel like you have to kind of, has it been difficult to kind of, you know, separate their camera presence from their business presence, or how do you, what is it?
No, I actually advocate that they should lean in and be their really true, authentic self. So I've got some clients who are a little quirky and weird, and I say, hey, why don't you lean into just being yourself? Like, don't try to be somebody what you think you should be. Just be you, because at the end of the day, that's what I think people buy. People buy who you are, and if they want to do business with you, they will, because they like that maybe you're a little goofy in some of your videos, and maybe that's just your natural tendency. Like, don't fake it. I think there's too much faking it till you make it. Just be your true, authentic self, and you will attract the right people who want to do business with you. And so whether it's like, I can think of plenty of examples that I work with. Like I have a plumbing company it's a multi-million-dollar plumbing company that I work through within my region, and they are uncomfortable. They've been in business for 13 years, and they never were on camera before. And now that they're on camera, they're starting to joke around in some of their videos and have some fun, and even like just be themselves with like you never really thought you would see before, but you get to show that. And those are the videos that do the best. And those are the ones that perform and actually start to bring in more business. Like, I'm really proud of the time of this recording. They just had their highest month they've ever had in their business. And that's because I think that they were really starting to lean into just being them and showing that personal side of themselves.
Here's the tricky part. I've ran into quite a few people who were talented. A lot of them have actually been health and wellness practitioners who've been doing really well locally, or maybe in their state, for example, in Arizona or Scottsdale, or they're like, actually the entire state of Arizona, I'm doing really well. And then they transition to like, I'm just going to build a bunch of content. Let me try TikTok. Let me try Instagram. And they realize they're starting like, oh crap, now I'm growing a following from like different parts of the US. Oh, I have a bunch of people from Canada or Europe actually enjoying my content, which is an amazing thing. But then there's that problem of like, now what do I do? I just have all these people from, all I have is like fly to my office in Scottsdale or something, or fly to my office in Austin. You know, what do you kind of recommend for people who are on the opposite? Like, I have a bunch of great content. Now, like, how do I monetize it?
Yeah, I think it depends on your business model, right? Like, if you are maybe like if we use again the plumbing example, well, they're not really able to really take their offer and make that a virtual offer at this point yet. But for other businesses that maybe have some more of that flexibility, maybe you can have more of a localized presence and then more of a virtual presence. Like for me, as an example, I'm based up here in Canada. I'm in Windsor, Ontario, which is right at the border with Detroit. So customers can locally, I will obviously go and I will shoot videos with them. I've flown down to Florida and I've done videos as well. Like I go to different locations, but some people it's not feasible to cover the travel and expenses associated with it. So I make sure that I have a virtual offer as well that people can get into a virtual studio with me and we can record content as well that way. So I think it's like, if you look at your offer, think, how can you have multiple offers of maybe a bit of a tweak and a variation based on price, based on maybe what your deliverables will be, that can be a remote component, and that could also be an in-person, and depending on what somebody wants, then obviously they can choose accordingly. I think it's about just having options. And in today's world, I think with everything that we've learned over the last number of years, so much can be done remotely. So there's ways to monetize what you're doing. It could be offering a course. It could be packaging something digitally, together, or putting something through your website. Like, there's no shortage of options in terms of how businesses can make money virtually, I think, more than anything else. So just because, if you've got you're local to where your region, doesn't mean your customers are all there. You can sell other things to people all over the world.
That presents a huge opportunity, and then many people overlook it or they underestimate. This is the part where a lot of either opportunity can go down the drain, or a ton of money or a ton of bandwidth. For example, let's think of someone who you don't really think would build a large online product. Even like you mentioned, a plumber or something like that. It's, hey, you actually use your personality to build content. People are actually starting to love it all over the world. And then it's just create a free product people can download, educate them towards a sale, or just create like an online course that is like, how to become your own plumber, or how to screen from a plumber. But that's where guys
Right.
like you and I actually, good copywriter consultants, guys like you, whereas this is what kind of product. Now there's the content of what kind of product do I actually create now, because it's like, oh,
Right.
people are loving, and it's, you create something that's like how to start a plumbing business and people don't care, then you missed the opportunity, where it's like, actually my audience wants to know how to screen for the right plumber, or to teach them how to maintain their own household. You know what I mean? Like, you probably had experiences like that where it's, okay, now it's time to monetize it. Don't just jump the gun. Like, you got to
Yeah.
create this kind of info product. Or
I think that the important piece, though, that I recommend for anybody who's an entrepreneur, business owner, is to realize that like shiny object syndrome is a real thing too. So you got to be strategic about like the when and where and like what you're going to actually put out there as well. So like make sure like your base of operations and everything is flowing and going good before you start to introduce something. But when you do, there's no shortage of ways to do it. Like, I know, like for one another of my clients that I work with, he was looking to how does he continue to expand, again, to expand that reach. And I was like, hey, we could just be using AI also to help us brainstorm ideas of other techniques and tools, or lead magnets and things that can be created to get, again, more of your value given out to people, as opposed to just content as well. Like, there's no shortage of ideas that are out there and ways to come up with ideas. It just takes a certain level of intentionality and creativity to ultimately come up with them.
I think an interesting part of that is companies who are on the opposite spectrum. They have like maybe a great sales team, or like a high converting paid ads funnel, or a great email list that people are buying. Then it's like, what about your content marketing presence? You have information that just pre-sells people on your business, and some people are like, no, I was going to hire 10 more salespeople or drop 25 more $1,000 on my funnel this month. And there is that organic part of, like, you can actually monetize a crap ton of organic stuff, and it's actually a fraction of the cost. You don't need any new people, maybe an outside consultant, a copywriter, someone who creates the content, like you, Chris, who just actually handles the strategy. Have you run into these things, or have you encountered these kinds of problems where it's, you have all these sorts of lead gen, but then you just don't touch like content marketing, and sometimes it's just, you have a huge missed opportunity. You don't need to hire 10 more people.
I feel like that is a common thing, actually, in that a lot of people, when they're trying to build and scale their business, and at various levels of business, I've seen this too, where they think they need to all go to the paid digital marketing side, when they don't realize that they could just go organic with some of their content to get some of that reach going and to actually get customers. Like, they're overthinking it so much and not realizing that some of the back to basics approach of just generating free or cheaper content can be really effective and actually better for them, depending on the platform or where they're at. Or like, if they're using like Facebook as an example, like one of the the best things about Facebook would technically be like localized groups that you could be putting your free organic content in to also generate some of those leads in that business for you. Like people overthink and then they start overspending, or they work. I've worked with a lot of agencies over the years as well in different parts of my career where they don't really fully understand what the business is all about. So maybe the content kind of misses. So I think it's about having people internally start to understand, like, okay, who is our customer? What are their pain points? And what kind of content can we create for them that would resonate and that would be ultimately help provide value, hopefully entertain them as well, and then ultimately get them to want to do business with us. Like there's so much power in organic content. It takes a level of just intentionality, but it's a cheaper way to go about it.
It's also that I think the tendency to overcomplicate, right? I think even people who are very skilled, you probably experience this yourself, or I've experienced it helping other people build their companies, other agencies and other influencers, even if they get to 7 or even the 8-figure levels, there's still that tendency to overthink these kinds of things, and sometimes it is just like either you don't need to hire 10 more people, you just use organic content, or it is like if you're holding a live talk, a webinar or something, it is just like even if you're doing multiple 8 figures, it's like you might not be giving a talk on the right content. And sometimes it does come back to the basics, right? Who is your audience? What is the problem you solve? And what makes you unique, right?
Well, and I think like there is just so much over complicating that happens. Like, and I'm sure you see a ton of it as well in your world, Jon, right? Where like people think that like maybe a landing page needs to be way more complex and built out than it actually probably could be. Like sometimes the simplest page and some of the simplest copy that just really articulates the problem at hand and then offers a solution is much better than something that's way more complex than it needs to be. Like simplicity scales, complexity fails. That's the way I look at it. Right. And so the more simple you can sometimes be with even your messaging, the better and more clearer it's going to come across to those that you're potentially selling to.
So I think one of the biggest things that you probably run into, and I've run into from a consulting perspective, and the funny part is you went through this yourself, is then it becomes the operational point, right? Because then it's like, okay, the president, CEO, entrepreneur is in it for creating content, and then it's, well, you have to delegate a bunch of stuff. You're trying to do way too much, way too fast.
Yeah, it's the power of the who's that matter more. It's not the how, it's the who that is the most important. And so who can help you? Who can you delegate to that can take care of those tasks that you really shouldn't be doing? Right? Like I even look at with my own business, right? There are times where I know that I probably need to delegate, whether it's outsourcing to someone else, a virtual assistant, or maybe even another partner or agency of some sort for some content that I do. Like I know I've got somebody that, I've got on standby for like producing podcasts to send, content their way so they can do the editing. I can do it, but should I do it? Probably not. Like you have to pick and choose what you should ultimately be doing as a business owner, as a CEO, and then figure out, okay, well, if you're not doing it, who is doing it? Who is the most important question in your business as you're trying to figure out how to scale this thing? Because if you don't have the who answered, you're never going to scale because you are the bottleneck at the end of the day.
That's the thing. I think that's like a level of transformation is when you get to that level, you have to call yourself out, right?
Yeah.
It's that if you're getting to that level as a leader, it's like at that point, almost all of us need someone to call us out first. It's like, it's my team's problem, it's social media's problem, it's Facebook's problem, it's AI's problem. Then you have to look in the mirror and be like, I'm actually the problem because I have to give up control. And then,
Now, let me ask a question for you then, Jon, on this. Like in my experience, I feel like this is the power of a coach and a consultant or a mentor to help someone have that realization. Like, would you agree on that front?
Yeah,
Like to pull that out?
that's what it's for. I think we all need that sounding board. We need that like outside, because I think there's an emotional attachment at some point. If we build even if we're like a partner of a business or something like that, there becomes an emotional attachment at some level. For influencers, or for people using their personality, that's just a given. You know, you could hit $100,000 and have an emotional attachment, and then you need to be called out then. But I think that's one of the biggest things. We get so tied up in our passions or our business or our, you know, our presence, that at some level emotion's not going to work, right? It's like you need to look at things logically.
Like there's the power of the third party perspective can make a world of difference overall. And so like with the consulting that I will do, like while I do a lot that's in the content space, like I'll also do like leadership consulting as well. And I'll work with organizations to make sure that they've got a strong culture. And so a lot of the owners that I work with, they'll pull me in because like, hey, can you come and you shadow with our team or work with our leaders? Because they want a different perspective because they're too close to the situation to kind of be able to see, hey, where are some of the problems? Where are some of the gaps in our team or our business? So you have to have that third party come in. And that's where I think being the third party in a lot of situations, I think it's valuable, but it's also, you have to like have a third party yourself. So I advocate that every business owner should have either a small circle of either people that's like that are similar to them, but maybe different enough to give them that honest feedback, have a mentor, have a coach, have a consultant, have a partner, somebody that you're working with who can be honest with you about your business. And maybe you put out some content that doesn't work and no one tells you that. Well, you got to go and ask somebody who's going to give you the honest feedback to like be able to say, hey, this didn't resonate. This is not good, or you need to tweak this or adjust this. Feedback's important. And then ultimately realizing that and then taking action, because again, it's at the end of the day, if nothing works in your business or it's not going your right way, it's actually on you as the business owner. It's not, you can't blame everyone else, even though we all want to. You got to blame yourself first.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, sometimes it's intimidating to be like, I'm going to hire someone like John or Chris, and there's that first conversation where it's like, you know, I think one of the biggest wake up calls is realizing what your audience wants or wants to hear or wants to learn or even wants to buy from you isn't what you thought.
Yeah. That is so true, right? Like getting customer feedback before you launch something is critical. I know from the hiring side, when I first launched Hire For Me, that my company there, like I've talked to a lot of business owners to understand, okay, is this the right pain point I'm trying to fill? Like I'm offering done for you recruiting for business owners who just don't want to do it themselves. They've tried doing it themselves. They've struggled. They maybe, hired and fired too many people. It's just not working out. So like I had to go to multiple business owners across multiple industries and say, hey, is this a problem? Is this something that, of what I'm offering here, is this a solution that's complete that you would buy? And at what price point would you buy? Like getting feedback beforehand is so critical. And then if they give you that feedback, you got to make tweaks and adjustments, then do that. But I think a lot of people who are creating businesses, they sometimes just think it's a good idea. I'm like, oh, I'll just launch. And then next thing you know, they fail. There's a reason that the failure rates are so high for so many companies in that first year. It's because there's not enough forethought put in, just like, is this a viable business model?
And so, because they also hit that level when it's time to get to the next level, right? Because when you're doing, $250,000, $500,000 per year, when you get to that level, chances are when you're going to seven figures or multiple seven, you're going to hit these stumbling blocks again, right? It's like hitting them at a new level.
Totally, right. And I think like, yes, say you start out a business and you get it to 0 to 500,000, and then you can maybe scale it and you're like, you're 750, maybe next year you're at 1 million, and then you're finding you're stuck maybe at that million mark, just for easy numbers. Well, then you got to figure out what's the next thing that unlocks that ability to scale where you're going from 1 to 5 million. Well, it's probably having the right people in your business. So the right who's, it comes down to that as well. Are you investing in the right, whether it's marketing, technology, the right processes? How do you know what is that right stuff? Well, then you've got to get somebody else to kind of come in to give you that advice, because you only know so much. So if you don't have the right somebody to come in and give you that advice and say, hey, this is how you can take your business from 1 to 5. It's through all these different, resources, tools, people, processes, whatever. That's going to be the thing that's going to unlock it. So it's joining masterminds, being part of networking groups, getting a mentor, getting a coach that's going to help you unlock that other stuff that you don't know. Because again, you only know what you know. And if you don't know enough, you got to get help to go find those resources for you. And I think it's the same thing. It's like, find the right person for yourself. Like, find the right person who can actually help generate the copy that's going to take my business from 1 to 5 to 10 million or whatever it's going to be. You got to find the right person.
So it's, it's that level of like, not swallowing our pride. If you have that kind of success, or if you're hitting that kind of I guess it is being humble of like,
Humble's the word, probably. Yeah.
80% on my zone of genius. And it's like, I'm trying to do too much. I got to delegate this, even if I have to pay 5, 10, 15, 20 grand to a specialist to help me get to the next level. Right. It's like, I just got to take this off my plate. I can't do everything.
Well, I would imagine that, like, yeah, there's some companies where you're going to be, say you're leading as a CEO, and maybe you've done really well to get it to 1 million, 2 million, but maybe you're not the right person to be CEO still of the company to try and get it to 10 million. Maybe you got to go out and hire someone to be that, and you're moving into a traditional founder mode, maybe, or you're still in that C-suite of some aspect, but maybe you're not the CEO. It's like, it takes a level of, I think, humbleness, sure. I think vulnerability, to be able to realize you maybe got to make some adjustments and bring in somebody who's smarter than you in some areas that maybe that's not your zone of genius. And that's hard to do, right? Because like, as entrepreneurs, and again, I'm very guilty of this. I sometimes think I know everything, but I also, thankfully, my wife reminds me, I don't know everything. But like, you have to be able to have, that humility to say, okay, I need help. I need the right expert.
Or the right partner, but I think that's just critical. I'm guilty of the same thing. I've been in this industry for quite some time, and there's newer, freelancers or newer consultants who sometimes need a mentor, and I'll teach them, and then I find myself learning from them. 10, 15 years younger, like just 1 year experience, and we can learn from. But I think that's an impressive journey. It's the content. It's what am I providing? Who am I selling to? Now I'm gaining traction. And then now it's like, now I got to confront myself again of, am I even focusing on the right thing? I think that's one of the stumbling blocks of success is like, let's say we get all these things in place. It's like, oh shit, I built a successful company to multi-million-dollar levels. And you have a partner, an employer, outside consultant like yourself, who's telling you, I don't think you need to be CEO anymore. That's probably one of the most humbling things to deal with.
Yeah, totally. I think one thing that's interesting that you said too, that I'd like to touch on, is that like, if you are, say, you're getting to the point where you just said like you're mentoring other people who may be 10, 15 years, less experienced than you in the industry, you learn a ton by giving back to others and to learning, right? Because like, yes, they're teaching you as much as you're teaching them, but like, just what you can get from that mentor-mentee relationship is pretty powerful overall. But like, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what level you are in your business. The more you learn, the more you're going to earn. It's all about just that continual self development, personally and professionally. The more you're going to grow, the more you're going to be able to adapt to new situations that are going to come up in your business. And I think that's the same thing with like when it comes to content, right? When you're trying to learn more about the different platforms that are out there, the different styles of video, maybe the different types of new technology and tools are out there, the more you're going to grow and be able to move quicker and faster.
Thanks again for joining us. We enjoyed having you sit there right next to us in your virtual seat, and I hope the feeling was mutual. Don't forget to rate, share, and subscribe to the Authority Marketing Podcast. And if you'd like, check out some other episodes we've got. Stay tuned for our next one.